Welcome back to the Surgeon's Roadie, where we demystify the operating room. My name is Wendy and I'm an operating room nurse, and in this video we're going to discuss OR traffic patterns. The operating room department is going to contain sections that each require different regulations, especially when it comes to surgical attire, access, and HVAC and mechanical regulations set forth by the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers, also known as ASHRAE, the American Society of Healthcare Engineering, also known as ASHE, and of course, AORN, which we all know as the Association of Operating Room Nurses. This is so important. How we manipulate air to protect patients might just be one of the most underrated things that we do. Using this clue game board as a blueprint, let's talk about zones. The OR department is a series of zones, or as I like to think of them, security checkpoints, kind of like TSA, but with more scrubs and less dignity. We have unrestricted zones, transition zones, semi-restricted zones, and restricted zones. Let's start with unrestricted zones. This is where people in street clothes can hang out, such as pre-op or the post-anesthesia care unit. Transition zones are usually locker rooms with 2 doors. You can enter in one side in your street clothes, drop your entire identity and your self-worth, and then exit the other side in surgical attire into the semi-restricted area. Semi-restricted zones require full surgical attire, similar to what I'm wearing now, plus a head covering. Anything behind a red line on the floor, if there's these big red lines in the operating room, anything behind that, including the OR hallways, the equipment and storage rooms, instrument storage rooms, and the sterile core, are all semi-restricted areas. The operating room itself is the restricted area. That requires full surgical attire that I'm wearing right now, plus that head covering, full PPE, which means a mask, gloves when necessary, and safety glasses when required. The operating rooms are pressurized with continuous positive pressure. You will see the pressure monitoring panel located inside the operating room or directly on the outside of the operating room. The cleanest air comes from directly above the operating room table. Above the OR, you will see these grates. These are laminar flow diffusers with HEPA filters. They flow unidirectionally at a slow and steady velocity. The recommended air velocity coming out of laminar diffusers is 0.25 to 0.35 meters per second. Anything higher and you risk creating an indoor skydiving wind tunnel, blowing patient particulates all over the place, but anything lower you will get stagnant air. Kind of like an airplane, chilling on the tarmac in mid-July, just recirculating everybody's farts. But there's variables that affect how the air is going to move. For instance, the colder the air is, the faster it's going to drop. We also have a thermal plume coming off of the patient from their own body heat, and then we have the body heat of the surgical staff baking like little potatoes under the heat of the surgical lights, and then we have the electrocautery, the drills, the saws, and large equipment all around the operating room table. This is all going to affect airflow. Here is a model of what OR airflow looks like in a computational fluid dynamics study that was published in 2018 in the ASHRAE journal. We can see the laminar airflow coming down like angel sparkles over the sterile field, being reinforced by what I like to call a hug from Jesus. It's an air curtain, and that separates the cleanest and freshest air from the rest of the air in the OR. Then the air gets sucked into these return grills, and there should be 2 of them on opposite sides of the room. I like to affectionately refer to them as Satan's vacuums. These grills need unimpeded airflow, so avoid stacking equipment in front of them, hanging lead over them, or allowing trash bags to get sucked into them. By AORN regulation, at a minimum, the volume of air contained in the operating room needs to cycle 15 times per hour through that HVAC system. But ASHE recommends 20 to 25 air exchanges per hour because they know that turbulence will be encountered as staff moves around the room, as equipment moves, and as people walk in and out of the corridor. Now, it is everyone's job in the operating room to be Paul Blart Mall Security when it comes to maintaining OR traffic patterns during surgery. The only time the main door should be open is when the patient enters and exits the OR, if you're removing contaminated instruments, or if you're passing off labs and specimens to runners, and then, of course, in between cases when you're turning over the room. While surgery is underway, use the core door or the anteroom door to retrieve supplies and additional instruments. The air that you introduce from the core is more filtered than the air from the outside hallway. The core maintains 4 total air exchanges per hour and a max humidity of 60%, and the temps range between 72 and 78 degrees. Now, the regulation temperature of the OR suite itself is between 68 and 78 degrees, with humidity between 20 and 60%, though there are exceptions. Trauma rooms, pediatrics, burn cases, and flap cases all have the heat set so high it'll melt your face off. And then conversely, orthopedics loves to drop the temperature right through the floor. in an attempt to turn the circulator and anesthesia provider into human popsicles. All temps and humidities must be documented for every single case, and anything outside of those regulation parameters that I just mentioned does require a reason why. I cannot overstate the importance of maintaining that humidity threshold between 20 and 60%, because obviously anything below 20% increases the fire risk in the operating room exponentially. As I found out, we weren't even below 20% when my scrubs lit on fire one day. Did you know that these were flame resistant? Anyway, the key takeaways of this video are to monitor temperature, humidity, and pressure like your patients' lives depend on it, because they do. Don't block Satan's vacuums, and you gotta be Paul Blart Mall Security when somebody waltzes through that main door when surgery is underway. All right, we'll see you guys in the next video.